Well, one thing I want to stress, is the fact that, in computational vision, there is not only vision somehow, What I wanted to stress, was the role of vision in guiding and understanding human action and interaction, These more or less, the dorsal pathway. What do we need in terms of early processing to support what we know about the processing in the dorsal pathway, the importance of the integration with other sensory modalities? I mean, vision is not there alone, motor control and representation. So try to see the role of vision in support to the actor and not only in support to the observer. So it's more to control, which is, I think, a very, very, very important role for vision and for survival, and most of visual brain, in fact, not only vision. I mean, it is just have another slide that was given by Giuseppe Lupino, this cortical network for hand actions and action understanding. There is a lot of processing going on all around, and what it seems to me that sometimes in dealing with early processing, we forget that vision is not in the brain alone. There is something else going on, and vision has to be supportive to this something else which is going on. And for example, we know that there are strange neurons which are responsive when there is a touch, or when an object enters in the visual field, or when the hand is moved in that reaction. So the visual receptive field in this case, it follows the arm. It's not fixed in the outside world or in the retina. It follows there. So there is a very deep links between motor control and vision. So which early visual features are required to drive these kind of neurons? Or another examples, canonical neurons, which are very close to mirror neurons. In this case, these are neurons which which are activated when the monkey is observed objects and act on the objects, which can be grasped in a specific way, but also when the monkey is just looking at the object. So in this case, it's not the shape of the object that matters, but how you grasp it. So the visual input is transformed into something which is very much embedded into motor control. So again, which early visual features are driving this kind of neurons? What are the properties? You can even recognize objects without the object. Something like, I have this short video clip here. These are, as you can see, two hands exploring an object. You don't see the object. And in spite of that, you can understand that it's a sort of a cylindrical object there. So what I want to stress with all this, is that is really the fact that vision has to support this kind of processes, and the most developed work on this stream of research are the works on studies on biological motion, which are these are just two examples where there was an attempt at modeling both the form or the ventral pathways and the motion pathways. So there are examples of models which are addressing what you need in terms of early processing to arrive to action understanding, like in this case. But what I want to stress here is that we have not investigated very well so far, how we can exploit the regularities of human motion to tune these early visual extraction processes. I mean, it's a long time that we know that movements, reaching movement, for example, have a velocity profile which is bell-shaped. So in the image, a moving arm is basically moving with this kind of velocity profile if it is going to reach. And the movement in the retina is, again, velocity is bell-shaped. So is there a way we can exploit this knowledge to tune the early the early visual processor. Or another example is this two-third power law, or the isogony principle, which was described by Viviani, which says that in drawing movements, equal angles are described in equal times. So again, angular velocity tends to remain constant when the radius of curvature changes, or the relationship between angular velocity of the hand and the curvature of the trajectory path. These are things which are linked in the motor space, in our own motor space. But certainly, when we look at somebody else, these motor constraints are transformed into visual constraints. And maybe, it could be advantageous to try to tune our early processors to take these features into account. I mean, I listed here a set of motion features that could be exploited to tune these early processors, like the regularity of the velocity profile, the position and time of the changes of curvature. These are perspective invariant properties in vision, which could be maybe exploited to drive this human biological motion understanding. The relationship between curvature and velocity, the local rigidity, there is an invariance between the distance between the joints of our body. I mean, this is something that, again, can be exploited maybe in vision very, very much. Common motion, I mean, our body, can be described as a cloud of points with similar velocity profiles or oscillatory behavior. So the influence of gravity on the trajectory, on motor trajectory and related in visual space. So there are a whole set of properties that we can derive from what we know about our motor system that maybe can be exploited through the dorsal stream, as I was saying. So questions that I listed here, for possible discussions, maybe we can postpone it or we can move it to tomorrow. But how can motor knowledge and the regularities of motor control be exploited to design, tune, or learn how to compute early visual features? We know that these motor abilities and visual abilities recognition are not innate, but they arrive very early in the life of us. So is looking at our own body a useful method to learn such features? We have these motor laws really in front of our eyes because we move our arms and our body in front of us. So we can tune these filters by looking at ourselves. So the other question is how far can we go only with feed-forward models to exploit human movement perception? Maybe we need to take into consideration some feedback. I know that this is a topic that we discuss tomorrow. And again, what is innate and what is learned and how this is learned. So this was my list of questions and my point related to early vision. Thanks.
Questions for Giulio?
Yes.
I really like your point because early vision, the representation seems to have to work for many different tasks.
Yes.
And right now we are always discussing one specific task and ask the question is it a good representation or not?
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe we should ask what is the set of problems we have to jointly solve, and what is then the minimal representation in the early stages which enables us to do a decent job on all of them.
Yes, I mean that was my point, specifically related to the motor aspects or which is important for understanding each other, for interaction with
because this
social.
overfitting to a particular task, a representation overfitting to a particular task seems to be very widespread, and a lot of the results with all these benchmarks point in this direction. And then you see this discrepancy when these solutions are then in the industrial world are really used under hard constraints, under large variabilities, then they are not performing as well anymore.
So the knowledge that needs to be brought to bear on these tasks, and
Yes.
this relates to the question, could be seen as a set of priors that are needed in order to do some recognition task or motion understanding and so forth. And
Yes.
my question is there some way to figure out at what level of the visual pipeline these priors have to be brought to bear? It could be that there is a certain number of neurons starting
Yeah, sure,
in the
yes,
retina where
yes.
they're not relevant, and then they start to kick in at a later stage.
Yes.
And then at that point we need to ask what is early vision, how early?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the other question, of course, because I mean, the processors, I mean, the neurons I was showing are certainly not in V1 or in any related areas, but some of the primitives which may be useful to segment, you know, a moving human being, let's say, are already coded in MT and MST. I mean, these optical flow components, or so it is really. It's not early as V1, but it's not, you know, it's not going too far on the pathways of processing.
Okay, I think it's already Saturday in Genoa.
Yes.
Thanks.